Spring is our favourite time of year here at Earth Trust. We see our beautiful natural world awaken from its winter slumber and burst into life. And it's also when we get to welcome visitors to our farm for our biggest event of the year. The Spring Festival takes place over the first 2 weekends of May, where families can enjoy a fun-packed day of activities. An evolution of our much-loved Lambing Festival, this exciting new event goes beyond the lambing sheds, with the opportunity to explore our whole farmyard as we look to showcase the importance of nature-friendly farming practices. You can meet some of our farm animals and learn about the role they play in our healthy landscape, and also speak to our friends at the Oxfordshire Beekeepers Association and the Owl Conservation Trust as we highlight the biodiversity impacts of farming. With tractor-trailer rides, giant hay bale climbing and a maker's market, there's something for everyone to enjoy, so please do join us if you can. I'm Susie Kemp from the communications team at Earth Trust, and as final preparations for the Spring Festival are underway, I've caught up with our senior ranger, Tristan Leslie, down at the cow barns to find out more about the role that farming in harmony with nature can play in maintaining healthy ecosystems, promoting biodiversity, and producing sustainable food.
So Tristan, can you explain a bit about the principles behind nature-friendly farming and how it supports biodiversity?
So nature and ecology, natural systems are really productive, and we want to try and mimic that as much as possible and actually use nature to help us with farming instead of opposing it and working against it. And in doing so, then of course we're helping to conserve nature and actually promote it, which, as we know, we're in one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. So, for example, we have margins in our arable fields, which are, we manage to promote pollinators, and of course those pollinators are then helping us to pollinate crops.
Oh yeah.
So they're kind of like wildlife corridors, a bit like hedgerows are. We try and promote a lot of hedge laying, and we do a lot of hedge laying around the site with really great, passionate volunteer groups. And that's the same kind of thing. It's about promoting habitat connectivity, especially for small mammals and things that can use those as corridors between otherwise fragmented habitat. And we also try and manage our grasslands for wildflowers. So we've got actual wildflower meadows that we graze quite heavily this time of year in the spring. That helps to take out the competitive grasses and kind of open the sward up to allow for the less competitive herbs and wildflowers to come through. And then we also cut them in the summer for hay. So in doing that, you remove nutrients in the form of hay bales, and then that also helps to reduce the kind of energy levels, as it were, in the fields.
Right.
Which then means you don't get those competitive grasses and just one or two species really thriving. You get a big range the following year.
Yeah.
And then also on the clumps, we're grazing those with cows, as you can hear in the background. That's producing beef, but also we graze it quite extensively. So it's a lot of grazing throughout the year, but low animal numbers, and that helps to ensure that the grass is never grazed down really short. And in having that thicker sward and longer residual, you've got a lot more opportunity for things like small mammals and invertebrates. And you'll see when you're going around the clumps, you see the kites and other scavengers around there, and that's because the way they're managed helps to support the small mammal communities.
Right. So tell us a bit about Earth Trust Farm then. How many fields do you have?
So we've got 3 kind of main farm holdings that have been bought over the years. So Hill Farm, which is by the clumps, and then Church Farm / College Farm down by Long Whitnam. Then North Farm, which is over the other side of the clumps, and that is going down onto the River Thames.
And you mentioned beef. What other produce do you get from Earth Trust Farm?
So we've also got a tenant farmer, Fred Ray, who he's got sheep. He's got about 400 ewes. He's just coming to the end of lambing at the moment. They're quite key in our wildflower fields because they really graze down quite low, and that really helps to, like I was saying, to reduce the kind of dominant grasses and open the sward up. And also they've got less animal impact, so a lot of our wildflower meadows are down on the River Thames. This has been an exceptionally wet year. So we're, having cows on there would poach it too much and cause too much damage. So sheep this year have been really effective in grazing there.
So the different ways that they graze manages the field differently.
The way they graze, and also just their actual weight and animal impact as well. And cows are kind of grazing, if that's your grass, they're grazing from the top, eating down, where sheep are kind of nibbling lower down. So you definitely need both. The sheep are good at taking out that lower stuff. So yeah, it's good to have a balance of both, definitely.
And so when you come and visit the clumps, you quite often see the cows grazing on there. Can you tell us a bit about the breed that the cows are?
So they're traditional Herefords. They belong to a local farmer. He's been grazing here for about 30 years. They graze, as I was saying earlier, grazed extensively, so that's the opposite to intensively. So they're grazing on there for about 9 or 10 months of the year, and between sort of 10 to 15 animals, really. And yeah, they're not grazing down short. The grass is still quite long.
And they're quite used to people, aren't they?
They're used to people.
Be worried of them.
The way they're kind of bred and handled is key to that, really. And yeah, they're key to managing the grass on there. If we didn't graze the clumps, they'd scrub up, and eventually they become woodland through succession. So that's quite key to the management. They're also they're kept on over most of the winter, and they're supplementary fed, so that ensures that they're still getting enough feed when the grass isn't growing through the winter.
Yeah.
And we supplementary feed them with hay from one of the wildflower meadows adjacent. And hopefully some of the seeds will be within that hay and spreads either through actually the hay being on the ground or passing through the animal and being excreted out.
Deposited,
yeah. So yeah, hopefully that's having not only a benefit for their welfare, but also for the wildflowers there as well.
Excellent. So we've mentioned sheep and cows. There's also goats at Earth Trust Farm. Can you tell us about the goats?
Yeah, well, goats kind of eat anything, so we'd like to, going forward, use them in kind of scrub management and not just grassland management. But Fraser and Rachel at North Farm are grazing their goats, their dairy goats, so they're producing cheese.
It's Norton and Yarrow, isn't it?
Norton and Yarrow, yeah. So
artisan cheese company.
The issue with animals that are being milked is that they have to be quite close to where they're being milked. So we can't graze on fields we'd like to. They have to be grazed near the North Farm buildings. But yeah, there's definitely scope for doing more grazing with them. And they're also really interested in this kind of rotational grazing, so animals being in quite high densities for a short period of time. The idea with that is it kind of mimics what herbivores would have been doing naturally in the landscape when there had been kind of large numbers which are being controlled and moved around the landscape quite frequently by predators.
Yeah.
So having fencing them in small areas within the field is kind of mimicking that.
So this is it. Nature-friendly farming is, I guess, it's all about getting back to nature, isn't it, and letting things happen more naturally rather than in such a managed.
It's promoting nature through farming, which is more natural and less working against nature. We're trying to work with nature. Nature is very productive, and we can kind of use that productivity in the food system.
So regenerative agriculture is kind of a term that's quite widely used and is becoming quite popular now. Can you just tell us a bit about regenerative agriculture and what that means?
Yeah, so if you think about sustainable agriculture, that is keeping things the same way, so you're not depleting that system. But we're working with already depleted systems. Soil health has been degraded, nature's been lost. Even just over the past few decades, really. And that's because of the way that our food system's been. That's not to blame farmers. That's farmers were encouraged and subsidised to produce food at that kind of cost, and did it successfully. But this is kind of now taking a step back and going beyond sustainable and thinking, how can we repair and enhance the land? And then within doing that, you're removing the need for kind of inputs and hopefully making farming more efficient and more productive by addressing the causes of the issues that we have in farming, and not just addressing the symptoms.
Yeah, so it's like focusing on the health of the soil, isn't it? So that stuff will grow better and grow healthier.
Yeah, fundamentally about improving the soil. So soils have been through a number of processes, high livestock density for a long period of time, machinery, all these kind of more recent farming practices have really compacted the soil. And that's quite significant when we think about the rain that we've been having. It's obviously been an exceptionally wet period, but a lot of that water wasn't actually being absorbed by the soil, it was just running off.
Yeah.
And you could go in some fields that are wet on top, dig a hole in the ground, and that top 3 inches might be wet, and then it's dry underneath. And that's because that soil's so compacted and lost that healthy structure, the water can't actually get in. And that's going to be, regen ag is crucial in our kind of climate change mitigation, really. If we can create soils that hold water better, we're not going to feel the effects of droughts as frequently.
Thanks, Tristan. That's a really useful insight. I'll leave you and the cows to it. You can hear more about how we farm, care for our soil, and look after our landscape in our other podcast episodes. The Spring Festival is part of Earth Trust's Spring to Life season, where we celebrate the circle of life by encouraging people to notice and nurture the nature around them. See our website, earthtrust.org.uk, for ideas and suggestions of how you can embrace nature and put a little spring in your step.